I've spoken a lot about ports this year, especially on the PSP. The reason they were so impressive at the time was because we just simply never had that level of power in a handheld device before. So what were portable ports of console games like before the PSP released? Well, in the 90s, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color reigned supreme. You also had things like the Sega Game Gear, which consumed about 52 AA batteries a minute. These portable consoles were perfect for ports for the simple fact that almost all console games at the time were 2D, which the Game Boy could obviously replicate. Granted with a lot less detail, but still the experience you were getting was very similar to what you'd get on a home console. By the new millennium, 3D gaming was now way more advanced than ever before, and 2D gaming was becoming a bit of a niche. 2001, Nintendo announced their newest portable console, the Game Boy Advance. While it was more powerful than the previous consoles, it was still primarily only going to handle 2D games, but that didn't stop developers from trying to do the unthinkable. That is the topic of today's video. I wanted to look at some of the most impressive ports on the GBA, games that push the device to its absolute limits. A bit of a disclaimer before I start, all the footage for these games has not been recorded on native hardware, just for the simple fact of I don't know how to record on this thing. So yeah, I have used other means to record the footage, but I have played the games on native hardware, so I'll be talking about my experience with those original versions. So with all that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the GBA's most impressive ports. Need for Speed Underground. This for me is where it all began. My love for racing games started with this game right here. There was just simply nothing like it. The vibe, the addictive gameplay, the customization and the unreal soundtrack. I absolutely loved this game. So you could imagine me as a child walking into my local game store and seeing Need for Speed Underground on the Game Boy Advance. This was way before the internet was readily available to me, so I had no way to check gameplay or reviews. All I had was the back of the box. And I mean, just look at those screenshots. Of course, I was completely sold on the idea of having Underground on my GBA. So let's have a look at how it holds up today. One of the first things you see once starting the game up is a quick montage of the car customization and the seriously impressive, at the time, 3D car models. Once you get into the main menu, you hear that iconic song that you get on the console version, that being Get Low by Lil Jon, which I never thought I'd say this, but I'm sick of this song after playing this game. Why, you ask? Oh, well, because it's the only fucking song that plays throughout the entirety of the game in the menu. And it doesn't just play on loop either. No. Every time you enter a different screen, the song just starts from the beginning again. During races you get a few other songs, so it's not all bad. There's like 4 songs from the console version here. Obviously I can't play any of the songs in this video, but someone has uploaded the GBA versions to YouTube. So if you want to know what a really low quality Get Low sounds like, go check it out. And also remember to refresh it every 10 seconds to get the full GBA experience. Speaking of the sound, I just wanted to touch on the car noises, as when I first played the game, these were absolutely unbearable to listen to. Just listen to this. It sounds like a cat being used as a sledgehammer. Once I changed the audio levels though, it wasn't too bad. And I did notice a really cool detail. When you put a turbo on your car, the noise it makes when changing gear also changes. They didn't need to add that. No one would have cared. But I do love small details like that. Anyway, enough about talking about the trauma my ears suffered. How's the gameplay and actual progression? Well, it's surprisingly good. You get a few modes, these being quick play, multiplayer and the main one, Go Underground, which is essentially this game's career mode. Just like the console version, the objective in Go Underground is to climb the ranks and become the city's best driver through 4 different race types, these being circuit, sprint, drift and drag events, all with their own leaderboards. You progress through the career night by night, challenging or being challenged by other racers to earn cash, climb the leaderboards and unlock new cars and upgrades. I do really like this setup, being able to just focus on one race type like the drag racing, but you will be challenged by other racers a lot, which you have to accept, which just completely derails you from progressing. Later in the game it does happen quite a lot and just becomes tedious, but still it does mean back in the day if you only had this to play when you were younger on a road trip, at least you were getting a bit more playtime out of it. The gameplay is just okay. I don't really have much to complain about in terms of controls. I will say the only problem I have is with the drift mode. It just doesn't work with this game's physics, which is a shame because drifting was my favourite race type in these games. Other than that, the game handles okay. The one major problem is the way the game looks. Overall, the car models themselves are impressive, especially considering they are fully customisable visually and performance wise. But in terms of the world, it's not so great. And I get this was supposed to be played on this screen, but it's still really hard to tell where you're actually supposed to go sometimes. Even adding something like a minimap would have helped massively. The visuals also make the circuit races feel exactly the same. This is 4 different circuits you're seeing on the screen. There's no variety. Oh wait, is that a bit of verticality? Oh, forget what I said, this is game of the year. Look at that beauty. Oh no, never mind, back to this shit again. I actually don't want to shit on the game too much, as it actually is really impressive, especially in terms of customization. The game really tried to give players almost the exact same experience as the console version. Everything from body kits to rims to paint jobs and vinyls and everything in between is here. The game has a total of 14 cars, which I didn't think was that impressive until I researched how many cars are in the console version, and it turns out there's only 20 cars in the original Underground, which honestly blew my mind. I could have sworn there was way more than that. So the fact that the GBA version only cut out 6 cars in total is really impressive. Even with all its shortcomings, this game still blows my mind. I can't believe it even exists. There's simply no other racing game like this on the GBA, well except for the other Need for Speed games that released. But even then, I still think this one is the only one that really tried to give players as close to the console version of the game as possible, and is honestly one of the most impressive ports I've ever played. The infamous Driver Free, or Driv Free, or Driv for free? Drive for free? Huh? Honestly, I could make a whole video about the controversy of this game, but that's been done quite a bit. So to summarise, the console version of this game is seen as one of the most rushed and broken games released during the 2000s. At the time, Atari and Reflections were still trying to compete with the GTA series, and got it out a couple of months before the release of San Andreas, and it was rushed out the door unfinished. But the worst part is allegedly the publisher paid off reviewers and journalists to give the game positive reviews before release, to try and show the game in a good light, which completely backfired. It's now known as the Drivergate scandal, if you wanted to do your own research. But honestly, back in 2004, 7-year-old me could not give two shits, because I love this game on my OG Xbox. All the unique locales to drive in, it was just a lot of fun. So when I found out there was a version on the GBA, I had to try it out. Once you start the game up, you only really have one option, and that is the story mode. Starting it up, you get greeted with a cutscene, which due to the console limitations is just a few screenshots from the console version, with some subtitles. Seeing as the driver games aren't really remembered for their great storytelling, you're not missing out on much. Once that's over with, you get dropped straight into the game, and this is honestly unbelievable. I still can't believe we have this 3D open world game running on a GBA. First of all, let's talk about the graphics and gameplay. Graphics wise, this is seriously impressive for the time. While the render distance is quite low, you can only see buildings and roads that are literally 3 centimeters in front, but the design of the actual world and car models is actually quite vibrant, especially in the first map of Miami, or as I like to call it, GTA 6 on the Switch 2. Gameplay wise, it's not bad, just a bit janky. Like most ports I talk about sometimes, the lack of additional buttons can really hold the game back, and that is definitely the case. Walking around and driving works just fine, but when you have to start shooting, then things get a bit awkward. You can't really aim, you just hold down one of the triggers and strafe to shoot the enemies, which I'll be honest, after playing it for a bit I did get used to, but I did end up running out of ammo during a mission and just had to run around hoping the enemy would kill me. But it just never happened, so I just gave up and we just ran around with each other awkwardly. Overall, gameplay isn't horrible, just takes a bit of getting used to, like most games on the device. I'm just impressed they managed to be playable with just 2 face buttons, 2 shoulder buttons and a D-pad. One thing I need to talk about is just how impressive all this is on the GBA. In the console version of Driver Free, there's 3 maps, these being Miami, Nice and Istanbul, which is a nice varied collection of cities, and the developers of the GBA port decided to do the unthinkable and add all 3 maps to this game, and they're not even that different in terms of layout to the original. Granted, they look nothing alike, but still, it's so impressive to see something like this done on far less powerful hardware, with the cartridges only being able to hold 32 megabytes of storage. This still just blows my mind. All the cities have distinct looks and vibes as well. I'm just really impressed with it all, not only in the impressive maps, but what if I told you this little GBA port could do things that you couldn't even do in GTA 3? Well, technically you can ride motorcycles and boats and even swim. Don't worry, I'm not suggesting that this game is in any way better than GTA 3, but just trying to show you how impressive all this was. And I mean, you compare it to the GTA game on the same console and it's not even close. I'll be honest, even though it's really impressive, the missions were driving me up the fucking wall. Some of them were just unbearable, straight from the start. The second mission in, you have to follow this police car and make sure this meter doesn't go all the way into the red. But the only problem is, once you hit something, it just speeds away and you immediately fail the mission. It would be fine if it was a few streets, but no, he does a full tour of Miami, and I honestly tried to do this mission about 15 times, and was even considering cutting this game out the video because of this. It doesn't help when the car you're following just makes sudden turns and also can just phase through oncoming traffic whilst you're trying to follow behind, dodging obstacles as you go. But honestly, once I got past this, I really enjoyed playing through the game. Some missions are a bit broken, like I said earlier, when I ran out of ammo and was just awkwardly running around with this one enemy NPC. But all in all, I can't help but be impressed with what the game had to offer. It's crazy to me that this little port of a broken console game is just so impressive. It probably flew under the radar due to the console version's controversy, but playing it today, I'm still so impressed with it. You gotta understand, 3D open world games on a GBA is just unheard of, so for a developer to not only do that, but do it with 3 different maps, a full story mode and a variety of different vehicles, and I even forgot to mention the little driving side activities and collectibles dotted across the map. It's no surprise why Driver 3 on the Game Boy Advance is so impressive. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're still here, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you could be one of those people to subscribe, that would mean a lot. And it's also the best way to keep up to date on the channel, to see what videos I'm working on next, with a new full-length video every single month. Thank you for supporting the channel. Now, let's get back to the video. Next up, I need to talk about one of the most impressive fighting games on the system, that being Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. The GBA had some great fighting games on it, and I've already spoken about Tekken Advance in the past, but today I really wanted to speak about one of my personal favourites from the 2000s. You see, back in 2002, Midway decided to do the unthinkable and turn this classic 2D fighter into 3D. Looking back on it now, especially with the more modern games in the series, they probably should have just stuck with the 2D, but at the time I absolutely loved it. Being a fan of Tekken and Soul Calibur, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance became one of my go-tos when it came to 3D fighters. Now, I never played the GBA port back then. I discovered it about 10 years later after its release, and I was absolutely shocked at how much it tries to replicate the console version. So let's take a look. The first thing I noticed straight away was the menus being exactly the same as the console version. Obviously there's not as many options, but still a nice touch having the exact same interface to go through as the main version. You only really have 2 modes to play, these being Arcade, which is your typical story mode, Survival, which is what you can imagine, and there's also Link Play, which is obviously this game's multiplayer mode. You also have the Crypt 2, which is a series staple, a place where you can unlock new characters and cosmetic items using coins you can earn from swiping your credit card through the GBA's e-reader. Well, not really, you earn them by just playing the game. Paying real life money for in-game cosmetics is a ridiculous idea. The game offers 12 playable characters, about half of what the console version has. Some of them are locked at the start of the game, but we've got some series staples here like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Sonya Blade and Kung Lao, with each character also having a bio with their backstory, which I thought was a cool addition. Gameplay wise it is very challenging, even on the easier difficulties, which we've come to expect from the series at this point. Most of the time the AI will just block every move you throw at them, so I ended up just button mashing and hoping for the best. Obviously a big issue with the game is the fact that there are only 2 face buttons, so the controls are restricted to 1 for punch and 1 for kick. But the game did incorporate the console's version's fighting style switch, so you can change movesets, but sadly this didn't include the option to switch to a weapon fighting style, which was always my go-to on the console version. You also have the test your luck and test your might minigames between fights in arcade mode to earn a few extra coins, which I thought was a nice touch, even if this one was next to impossible. Fatalities are here as well. Granted, they're a bit tame than what we see nowadays, but I have to bring them up because for some reason when you perform one, the character will just start dropping brains like rings in Sonic. One of my favourite things in this game has to be the stages. The devs really tried to bring those same stages you see in the console version over, and they're really impressive. The colours really pop out, each stage feels unique and feels just like they do on console, and some of the stages even have reflections on the ground. I can't believe we have ray tracing on the GBA before GTA 6. Overall, everything from the character design and moveset to the stages, MK Deadly Alliance on the GBA is super impressive. It'll never be in my top 10 fighting games of all time, but when it comes to the genre on the GBA, it's one of the best. Now, I think I've saved the best till last. Whilst I do think most of the games I've spoken about today are impressive, they certainly aren't the most fun to play nowadays. But Max Payne on the GBA is not only impressive in terms of what it achieves on the console, but also just how well it holds up today. The Max Payne series was developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Rockstar Games, with the original coming out in 2001. The Max Payne games are most well known for their great but dark storytelling and action-filled gameplay. I've said it before, but just imagine John Wick the game, and it's basically Max Payne. So what is it about the GBA port that's so impressive? Well, there's a few things. Firstly, the game tries its absolute hardest to replicate the console version. Everything from the cutscenes to the level layout is the same, granted with a few corners cut to work on the GBA. Thankfully, the console version's cutscenes are told with this comic book style and voiceover, which was implemented into the port, albeit with the audio being a bit more choppy. Rather than it being an over-the-shoulder third-person shooter, the game opted for an isometric angle, which honestly works well. So yeah, the game isn't the most impressive visually compared to the other games, but I do think they captured the dark and gritty world of Max Payne perfectly. Whilst it's dark, everything still stands out and it's clear where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do. The game is quite graphic as well. Shooting an enemy with a shotgun will leave their blood sprayed on the wall, but sadly they don't spray out about 42 brain sprites like Mortal Kombat. Gameplay wise, it's really fun to play. The controls have been implemented perfectly, whilst the movement and aiming takes a while to get used to. Once you have it down, the game honestly feels like all the other games in the series and kind of reminds me a little bit of Hotline Miami. I mean, just look at this gameplay. Yep, that's bullet time on a goddamn GBA. I don't believe it either. But everything here is just so smooth, from the bullet time to the weapon selection. Speaking of weapons, there's a shit ton you'll be playing around with as you go through the game. Different variations of pistols, shotguns and automatic weapons to keep the gunplay interesting. You'll also be able to keep stocked up on ammo, painkillers throughout the game, thanks to there being a ton of boxes, crates, lockers and medicine cabinets for you to break open throughout each mission. So no awkward encounters with NPCs like other games I've spoken about today. I honestly don't think there's any other port on the GBA that somehow manages to capture the feel of the main game, just like Max Payne. The one thing I will say that was quite annoying was the fact that the enemies could shoot you before they even entered the screen. Since this game only gives you like 4 lives per mission, it can get quite tense. Couple that with the difficulty aiming sometimes, it does get quite frustrating. But honestly, not enough to stop me from playing. Overall, I still can't believe just how good this game is and how well it holds up 23 years after its release. If you're a fan of the Max Payne games and you've never played this version, I honestly can't recommend it enough. It's fun, it's brutal, everything you want from a Max Payne game. So there we have it, some of the most impressive ports on the GBA. Honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to these types of games on this handheld, and I can't wait to revisit this topic in the future. So if you have any suggestions of games I should look at next, let me know in the comments below. That's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you when I see you.